I've been very fortunate, I think, to be involved with a group of girls that have a great attitude.
Doctors at the Mayo Clinic diagnosed me with an early onset dementia, Alzheimer's type.
If anyone deserves it, the University of Tennessee deserves it. They've made a great commitment to women's athletics and in particular women's basketball, and I'm glad to be a part of it.
I don't know what you're going to do, but you better come out of this locker room with a big-time attitude.
We remember her for her tenacity.
When I put you in, what did I tell you to do? Then do it.
Her signature glare, her unmistakable voice,
This is a chance of a lifetime.
and her love for the game. Pat-Summitt was a coach who changed the sport forever, and now her story is being told in a new way.
When you write a project, it lives inside of you. So I consciously made the decision to select subjects that were going to make me a better person.
Lisa Soland is the playwright and actress behind a one-woman show called Pat.
Playing ball was all I really had. Life on the farm was strict. I think it wouldn't harm anybody to study her life. She didn't want to be looked up to like a goddess. She wanted you to realize the greatness within you.
After 6 years of research and writing, Soland takes the stage as Pat for the first time in Knoxville.
I have faith that God led me to this project and that He'll lead me through it.
The story shows a side of the famous coach that wasn't always seen from the sidelines. And that's what director Melanie Eubank says makes it so special.
Everybody knows Coach Pat. That's who everybody knows. But to get to see her humor and her humble spirit, her love, it's amazing.
I knew better than to cry in front of him.
We are now in the month of June, a month that really means a lot to many here in the East Tennessee community. It was 10 years ago this month that we lost legendary Lady Vols head coach Pat-Summitt, and now a tribute is taking place to the stage. It is a one-woman show. Lisa Soland is joining us here now. You have created Pat, this one-woman show, and you play Pat yourself. I mean, that's an incredible feat that you've been able to pull off. First, let's talk about your background. You're an actress. You also write, obviously. So tell us a little bit about who you are.
Wow. I graduated from Florida State University with an acting degree. Spent a year as an apprentice at the Burt Reynolds Theater working with Burt Reynolds. Charles Nelson Riley was my primary teacher in acting, and then I moved to Los Angeles on his advice and lived in LA for most of my adult life before coming here to Knoxville.
And here you are in Knoxville, and of course, you know, one of our legends here is Pat-Summitt. I imagine you have been inspired by her over the years.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think as a playwright, you're aware of where the greatness is. You know, you always have an eye out for, especially, I became interested in one-person shows because my mentors all wrote one-person shows. Charles Nelson Riley, I saw his one-man show 3 times in L.A. Burt Reynolds had a one-man show that I understand lasted over 4 hours. So
wow,
that would have really been tiring. Yeah. And then William Luce, who was my playwriting mentor, he wrote Broadway shows about, the Belle of Amherst was a famous one about Emily Dickinson. And he did famous many one-person shows. And so these people were mentoring me. And my first one was Sergeant York on Alvin York. And then it was while I was touring with that show that I got the idea to write about Pat-Summitt.
And when was that? How long ago did you start working on this then?
The idea, I started in 2019. I wrote about 7 pages back then, which is a lot. That's 20 minutes in a one-person show because there's nobody else on stage with you. It's just you talking. And it went over really well. So I started in 2019, and then there was a break because oftentimes when you're working on a project, sometimes you get discouraged, and there was some discouragement along the way. But then you've got Pat-Summitt's voice in your head that it encourages you to keep going and keep fighting. So then I finished it in January and February of last year. because my husband said, just write it. You know, who cares if you get it produced? Who cares if anyone likes it? Just write it and get it out of your head. And that was the best advice that could have happened because I wrote it and got it out of my head. And then a friend of mine is Bob Bell, contacted him. And then he introduced me to Roger Cunningham of the Bed Store. And then Roger introduced me to Joan Cronin. We had them all at the house. They heard the play and they were stunned.
So you performed the play in front of that small little group.
I did.
Wow.
We had them in our house.
Yeah.
Debbie Jennings and all of them. They came, the foundation, the Pat-Summitt Foundation, they came and they're sitting there. And at the time, I wasn't so nervous because I didn't understand, you know, how incredible it was. I was just an artist trying to do an excellent job. Mm-hmm. That's always what I've tried to do. And they were sitting there in my living room, and I was sitting up, and Greg Helton, who played Sergeant York, was reading the stage directions. And we read it for him, and we finished, and there was just silence. And I didn't realize at the time how deeply still grieving they were, you know. And Roger and his wife, Misty, they got a little misty-eyed, and Misty, his wife, just was stunned, and she said, I feel like I've seen a ghost. Wow. And, of course, I had a wig on and, you know, her makeup and stuff. But that's been amazing. We did it last October at the Old City Performing Arts Center. Yes. And we had, I just couldn't believe it. Once the word got out, we were sold out. Mm-hmm. And then about 40 of her players came. And the first act of the play is about her background, how she became who she was, which many of us don't know that story. We just saw who she was and what she did, which was amazing. But when you understand more of the full picture, I think it's very rewarding and really opens people's hearts to who she was deep down. And who she was she cared about people. Yeah. She cared about people.
And you mentioned that all of those players and people who knew her have seen it and seen you. Their reaction has been what? Yeah,
it's hard for me to even talk about it without having it, you know, impact me. But they lined up after the show. I'd have to go and change and come out, and there'd be a line, and all they wanted to do was hug me. And they thanked me. I mean, I'm used to working so hard, you know, like all of us at what I do. But then to have people that knew Pat directly, you know, hug me. And, you know, I've had several people weep. And I would just hold them because I realized maybe that's why, you know, maybe that's why I was called to write it, because people still needed to be reminded of who she was and also grieve the loss. It was significant.
I think when people love and admire and respect someone so much, they just want to hold on to any piece. And you were probably giving them a little glimpse into her once again that they maybe hadn't seen or felt in a very long time. And I imagine that brought a lot of emotion to the surface.
Yeah, Holly Warlick came. I mean, to have these people, Joan Cronin came 4 times. Wow. She's incredible person.
Yes.
It's one thing to hear about her. It's another thing to have her working on your side.
She's a force in her own right, for sure.
Yes, she's a force of nature. Well, think about what type of a person coaches Pat-Summitt.
Right.
And there you have Joan.
Yeah.
But they came, and oftentimes they sat in the front row, and there I was, nervous as all get out, you know, up there on the stage with them only a couple of feet from me. But Holly was wonderful, wonderful. She hung out afterwards, and she told my husband that I had nailed it. And then to hear it from the people that knew her is really something.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the show. How long is it now? And again, this is all you up on that stage. And you mentioned the first part sort of talks about how Pat became Pat, and then you know, what happens after that. So let's talk about.
Well, what I did as a playwright, I've been writing plays for 35 years, moved here from Los Angeles, and after graduating from Florida State, I moved to LA. So that was basically my journey. And the second act, I have framed it. That's really the craft. One of the aspects of being a playwright is how you frame a play. So I frame it in the doctor's office when she gets her diagnosis. So the beginning of the first act, the doctor gives her the 5 words to remember. And then, not to give away too much, but the beginning of the second act, they've come to a conclusion about what's wrong with her. And they give her the news, and she just, this is how I'm going to beat it. I'm going to outwork it.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all there is to it. You know, and that's what she decides. And then I get up and I start moving. I mean, that's, you know, so she tells her life story in the framework of the diagnosis. So at the time of the play, I imagine her being about 60, 61. Yeah.
And so how did you study to play Pat? I mean, we are all inspired from her, but playing her, embodying her, being able to convince people in a way that you are her. Did you watch tape of her? Did you listen to her? Or did you not do that?
All of the above. I did everything I could possibly think of to do. I've talked now, of course, with a lot of people that knew her directly. But the best way to play somebody else is to get to know them on the inside. So you're not watching yourself from the outside. And to go into playing her, all I have to do is think about her life on Henrietta, you know, and back there. And she used to work out in the fields with her brothers. I did the same work as a man, you know, but everywhere else, women have to come in second. You know, she did a lot for women.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I think that's why so many women respect her so much. And, you know, you really shine the light on that in this play, it sounds like, for sure. But you kind of are hitting the heart of it, too, is that I think we all sort of know the persona that goes around Pat. But as you keep pointing out, it's what's inside.
Yes.
I mean, she had a heart as big as you could imagine. But some people didn't recognize that you could actually see that shining through the exterior.
No, this is great. Okay. This is something to take away. Okay, as an actress, you try to find the similarities between you and the character that you play. You find the bridges. You don't try to suddenly put somebody else on. You try to find the commonality between you and the character. So what I did was as I was researching her and writing the role, I discovered that her favorite quote of all time was Zig Ziglar. And this is what he said, and it's my favorite quote too.
Really?
And this is the one thing I hold on to that says everything you need to know about Pat-Summitt. You can get everything in life you want if you just help enough other people get what they want. And that was Pat. Her focus, she was outwardly focused. And what an honor it is to play somebody who is not self-focused. And she was. I mean, 100% of the 161 players that played for her graduated. 100% graduation rate. That was her focus. In her mind, that's what meant the most to her. You know, the championships, they got harder and harder for her to win every year. But what she always reflected on was, and the excellence that those women graduating went out into the world. Michelle Marciniak, you know, I had a talk with her. You know, she's the CEO over at the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame, and she called me in to meet with me. I think she just wanted to look at me and figure out what it was. And but we sat there together, and she told me that it was Pat that sent her out into the world. And after she started her, she has a sheet company that she's developed. She makes luxury sheets for beds and stuff. And she was the CEO of her own company. And she gives a lot of that credit to Pat-Summitt for instilling in her that she could do it. You know, I hate to say this, but, you know, it's difficult, I think, for some of us to override our internal objections about how great we can be. That is really difficult. People, mention her intensity. She had to be that intense. She had to do what she did to get it into people's heads that they were capable of doing what God put them on the earth to do. They could do it, but they had to work harder, and they had to stay focused, and they had to believe that it was possible. And she did whatever she had to do to get people to override their own internal objections. And I love playing that person that did that.
Well, on a fun little note, how much did you know about basketball before you started writing this? A lot or not much? And can you shoot a basket?
She's laughing. I played basketball. In high
Nice.
school.
Yes. Awesome.
I did, and I actually received a couple of scholarships to
Wow.
play in college because of what Pat-Summitt was doing here in Eastern Tennessee.
Wow.
I had the benefits of that, so I'm grateful for that too. But at the time, I did not know that there was a woman out there working for us future women.
Yeah.
And us women now have to work for the future women, you know, for all people. But yeah, I got 2 scholarships. I received Most Valuable Player my junior and senior year. I was the captain of the team. I had a great coaches, and yeah, I was an athlete. I also received scholarships for volleyball, and I ran track and loved all of that. Loved all of it. And everything that I learned as an athlete, I just applied to a life in the theater. I turned down all the scholarships, and I went to school to study theater.
Wow. Well, I mean, look, it's all come back to help you in the end here. It all comes around. And when you want people to leave and take something away from this, the way that you're describing it in a way, the second act sort of being her diagnosis, are people leaving the theaters feeling sad? Are they feeling uplifted? How do you want them to feel when they leave?
Well, they're going to have to come and find out. It's the diagnosis is just part of the reality of what she was up against.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you something about adversity. If we had no adversity, we would be less great. So we should not be afraid of adversity. As it comes with every single task we set out to do. And if it doesn't, then thank God that you're being given a little respite. But it's I have being a producer of theater, there's always adversity, and it doesn't surprise me anymore, having done it for so long. But it's not the adversity. You just, once you get to accepting that it's just part of everything, then you can get about what you're here to do. And we've all been given a task, and I think that's something people will walk away understanding. Pat doesn't want people to put her on a pedestal, I'm sure. She wants you to be the best you that you can be. That's what she did. She knew what she was called to do. She figured it out along the way, and then she did the best she could at what she was given. And I think that's what, if she was here today, she would say, get to work now.
Well, we are so excited that you are bringing this now to the Jenny Boyd Theater on the UT campus. So you're sort of bringing Pat back to UT, and you're looking forward to that, I imagine.
Yeah, it's freaky. When I go to rehearsal at the Jenny Boyd, I take a left on Pat-Summitt Avenue.
Yeah.
Pat Head Summit. Yeah.
Right.
And that's interesting. But people should also know that a portion of the ticket sales goes to the Pat-Summitt Foundation. And that, of course, they're fighting Alzheimer's with that. And we had a lot of people that were diagnosed with Alzheimer's come to the last production. And I think it helps to know that other people have been through what you're going through, and that you're not alone, and that there is a team that can be behind you. And the Pat-Summitt Foundation is that for sure. They're behind me too, which is great.
Well, if people want to get tickets and learn about showtimes, where can they go to get that info?
They can go to www.pattheplay.com. That's part of my website, lisasoland.com, and there's plenty of little things you can click on. It takes you right to where you can buy the tickets, and it'd be a good idea for them to get them as soon as possible.
Yeah, they sold out last time, right? So
we sold out. We kept adding seats, but there comes a time when you cannot add any more seats.
All right, well, good to know. We need to get on it. Lisa, thank you so much. Lisa/Pat, we appreciate you coming, and certainly break a leg, as they say.
Thank you so much.
All right.